All right, so today we're diving headfirst into a Hollywood feud that's gone from a simmer to a full-on boil. Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and a scandal that has more twists and turns than a blockbuster movie.
What I find really interesting here is how this whole thing really shines a light on that picture-perfect image of Lively and Reynolds. You know, Hollywood's golden couple. But this is not just some tabloid fluff. This is a story with serious allegations, legal battles, and some real behind-the-scenes drama that could seriously impact their careers.
It all started with a whisper, right? A behind-the-scenes feud with actor Justin Baldoni. But things have spiraled. We've got a mysteriously missing podcast episode, a strange online petition, and more people questioning Lively's behavior.
Yeah, let's start with that missing podcast episode. So Ari Emanuel, who's a huge Hollywood agent, represents Lively and Reynolds, and he went on the Freakonomics podcast.
Freakonomics. They usually go pretty in-depth on their topics, right?
Oh yeah, they're known for their deep dives. And this episode was supposed to be all about the entertainment industry, but then, right after it aired, it disappeared, like vanished into thin air.
That's weird. What's the official reason? Did they ever say?
Technical difficulties. But the timing is just so suspect, especially since leaked audio came out later. And in this recording, you can actually hear Emanuel defending Lively. He even admits to firing Baldoni from a project because of pressure from Lively and Reynolds.
So not just a random glitch then. Seems like a very deliberate move to bury this conversation. What could they be so worried about?
Well, to really get that, we need to look at the whole picture of this feud. Because it's not just about personalities clashing, it's about power, who has it, who's trying to protect their image in Hollywood. And that brings us to this petition. It's on change.org, and it's calling for Justin Baldoni to be kicked out of the Screen Actors Guild and the Producers Guild of America.
Strong move. Petitions can be powerful tools, but this one is interesting because it throws out all these vague accusations against Baldoni but doesn't have any real evidence. And then the petition creator is using a fake name, Gavin Beck.
That's right. Sounds familiar, right? It's a straight-up reference to that stalker character from the Netflix show You.
Definitely seems like a smear campaign to me. But who's behind it?
That's $1 million question. Some people are saying it's classic Ryan Reynolds, you know, with his dark humor and online antics.
But wouldn't that be a huge risk? I mean, smear campaigns can backfire.
Oh, totally. They can blow up in your face. And in this case, it looks like that's exactly what's happening. So Lively's legal team actually tried to subpoena Baldoni's personal records. We're talking phone calls, emails, everything going back 2.5 years.
2.5 years? This seems a little excessive.
Yeah, the judge thought so too. The request was denied, which basically means the court didn't buy Lively's claims. And it makes you wonder, why do they need so much information if the smear campaign, as they say, started much more recently?
Feels like this aggressive legal strategy isn't working out so well. And on top of that, Lively's social media has taken a massive hit. Almost 900,000 followers gone since this whole thing started. Meanwhile, Baldoni's follower count has jumped by over 230,000.
Right, and Lively's fans are saying it's bots, but come on, bots usually inflate numbers, they don't deflate them. This looks like a real shift in public opinion to me. People are starting to see past that carefully crafted image, and they're siding with Baldoni. And this whole controversy is making people look back at Lively's past, and well, let's just say it's not exactly squeaky clean.
You know, I was about to say, this isn't Lively's first public feud, is it?
Nope, not by a long shot.
Yeah.
Way before all this drama with Baldoni, Lively had a super tense relationship with Anna Kendrick. They were co-stars in A Simple Favor.
I do remember hearing something about that. What happened there?
Oh, it was bad. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The studio actually had to step in and make them pretend to be friends just for the press tour.
Oh, wow. Can you imagine having to fake a friendship with your co-star just to sell a movie? That's got to be super awkward.
Yeah, it was a total disaster. Word on the street is that Kendrick felt Lively was super competitive, like to the point where she demanded that her cleavage be photoshopped to match Lively's on the movie poster.
Oh my gosh, that's a whole other level of competitive. And to think they were supposed to be best friends in the film.
The irony is not lost on anyone, let me tell you. By the time that press tour was over, they weren't even talking to each other. But then, get this. Despite all that bad blood, the director decided to bring them back for a sequel.
Oh no, what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly. And you can probably guess what happened next. The filming was a nightmare. All those old tensions came bubbling back up and the set became a war zone. The crew was practically playing referee, keeping them apart to avoid blow-ups.
So the sequel was basically cursed from the start.
Pretty much. And to add insult to injury when the filming was done, Lively refused to do any promo for the movie.
Wow, seriously.
Yeah. Some people say it was because of her legal battle with Baldoni, but a lot of people think she just couldn't stomach another press tour with Kendrick.
So basically, she sabotaged the whole film because of a personal grudge. I mean, talk about unprofessional scouts. And it's a terrible business decision, especially since Amazon poured a ton of money into this sequel.
Well, they were not happy about it. And because of all this drama, Lively's reportedly been blacklisted from presenting at the Golden Globes.
Oh, that's a big deal. It's one thing to be gossiped about, but getting shunned by major players like CBS and Dick Clark Productions, that's a sign her reputation is seriously damaged.
It really shows how Hollywood works. It's not just about talent. You got to maintain a certain image. You got to navigate all these relationships. And Lively's behavior, well, it's catching up to her and it's having some real consequences.
And it's not just Anna Kendrick either. More and more stories are coming out about Lively clashing with other co-stars. There are rumors about a strained relationship with Leighton Meester from Gossip Girl.
Right. Their off-screen dynamic was reportedly ice cold, total opposite of their characters who are best friends on the show. And there's even a story going around that Lively made fun of Meester for being born in prison.
Ouch, that's just mean. And what about that whole thing with Armie Hammer on the set of Gossip Girl?
Yeah, that ended with Hammer getting fired. And years later in an interview, he was asked about the biggest diva he'd ever worked with, and his reaction was priceless. He totally froze up, wouldn't answer the question. You can draw your own conclusion.
Definitely sounds like Lively has a history of stirring up trouble on set. And now, with all this negative press coming out, former colleagues are feeling more comfortable speaking out about her not-so-great behavior.
Exactly like a former co-star from the rhythm section said Lively was rude, dismissive, wouldn't even make eye contact with other actors. And there are other stories, too, about Lively demanding a personal bodyguard even on a set that was already totally secure. It's like she built a wall around herself.
That's a far cry from that friendly, down-to-earth image she puts out there. It makes you wonder, is this just a few isolated incidents, or is there something more going on here?
That's what we need to figure out, right?
Yeah.
What's really interesting is that this scandal is shining a light on something much bigger than Blake Lively. It's showing us the underbelly of Hollywood, where it's all about power and image and manipulation.
And it makes you think about Ryan Reynolds' role in all of this, too. After all, they are Hollywood's golden couple.
That's a great point. Remember those scenes in Deadpool that kind of seemed to poke fun at Justin Baldoni?
Yeah.
Some people think that was Reynolds' way of getting back at him. Adds a whole other layer to this already messy situation.
The timing of those scenes is definitely suspicious, right around the same time as that legal battle. But is this just Reynolds being a supportive husband, or is there something more calculated going on?
It's tough to say for sure, but let's not forget about that whole thing with Hugh Jackman's divorce from Deborah Lee Furness.
Oh, right. There were all those rumors about Lively and Reynolds taking Hugh's side after he started dating Sutton Foster. Apparently, Deborah Lee felt betrayed by Lively especially.
And there's more. Sources close to Deborah Lee are saying she believes Lively and Reynolds knew about Hugh's new relationship before she did.
Wow, if that's true, that's a serious breach of trust.
Absolutely. And it reinforces the idea that Lively and Reynolds might be a lot more strategic and calculated in their relationships than they let on.
It's like they're playing this big game of chess, positioning themselves among Hollywood's elite. But this time it seems like they made a wrong move.
That's a sharp observation, and it brings us back to Blake Lively. All these stories about her behavior, the feuds, the alleged manipulation, it's painting a very different picture of who she is.
Okay, so we've got this missing podcast episode, a really suspicious petition, and now all this evidence of bad behavior. But is this just typical Hollywood drama, or is there something more serious going on?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it brings us to a really important part of our deep dive, the allegations of abuse. This is where things get a lot darker.
You mentioned this earlier, and I have to admit, I'm a little hesitant to go there. We've already uncovered some pretty bad behavior, but you're saying it gets even worse.
I am, and it's not easy to talk about. A number of people, and they've chosen to stay anonymous because they're afraid of what might happen, have come forward with some pretty disturbing stories about Lively's behavior. They describe a pattern of bullying, manipulation, and emotional abuse.
Wow, that's heavy stuff. And these are people who work directly with Lively.
Yes, people who were in positions where they felt like they were vulnerable to Lively's power and influence.
So can you give us some specifics? What kind of incidents are we talking about?
Sure. One person who worked as an assistant on the set of A Simple Favor described this atmosphere of fear and intimidation. She said Lively would constantly put her down and make her feel small and worthless.
That's just awful. It's one thing to be demanding, but it's another thing to cross the line into abuse.
And it wasn't just a one-time thing. This person, along with others, say that Lively's behavior was a constant thing that created this really toxic work environment.
It's hard to believe that someone would use their position of power like that.
Yeah, it is. And the allegations go beyond just verbal abuse. Another source, a production assistant on one of Lively's earlier films, said Lively would actually try to sabotage the careers of anyone she saw as a threat.
Sabotage. How would you do that?
This source says that Lively would spread rumors about other actors trying to ruin their reputation. She would also leave them out of social events and networking opportunities, basically trying to shut them out of Hollywood.
That's just cold.
Yeah.
If these allegations are true, it really changes how we see Lively. But it's important to remember that these are just allegations. Lively hasn't been charged with anything,
Right.
and she denies doing anything wrong.
Right, absolutely. We have to remember that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But the fact that we're hearing similar stories from multiple people is definitely concerning.
It does seem like there's a pattern of behavior here. And it makes you wonder, is this just Lively being difficult, or is there something bigger at play here?
That's a really good point. This whole situation forces us to look at the power dynamics in Hollywood. There are a few people who have a huge amount of control over the careers and lives of many others.
It's a system that can be taken advantage of, especially by those who are willing to manipulate and intimidate others to get what they want.
Exactly. And as we've seen in this deep dive, the consequences can be devastating. Reputations can be ruined, careers can be destroyed, and lives can be changed forever.
It's a reminder that all that glitz and glamour often hides a much darker reality. And while we can't condone abusive behavior, it's important to understand what leads to it.
That's right. This isn't just about Blake Lively. It's about a system that often rewards ruthless behavior and protects those in power.
This deep dive has been a wild ride. From that disappearing podcast episode to these allegations of abuse, it feels like we've only scratched the surface of this Hollywood scandal.
We have, and as more information comes out, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Will Lively and Reynolds be able to survive this, or will this be the beginning of the end for their careers?
I guess we'll have to wait and see. But one thing's for sure, this scandal has revealed the dark side of Hollywood, and it started a conversation about power, accountability, and the cost of fame.
It's a conversation we need to keep having. We need to challenge the systems that allow abuse to happen and hold those in power accountable for their actions.
It's been a fascinating deep dive, though definitely unsettling. And as always, we encourage you to look into the source material yourself and come to your own conclusions. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay curious.